Cool. Yeah, Joel, thanks for joining us and giving us a little bit of reflection on your time as a junior dev at a AI forward company. I'll hand it straight to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. Um, I'm Joel, junior dev, and yeah, stoked to share my experience so far. Also keen to hear about other people's experience as well. Um, the focus of the chat's going to be like how I have been learning while AI is doing a lot of my code generation, and like how I'm maintaining learning, even though it's doing a lot of the groundwork for me. Um, right, so we'll just jump in. Let's see. How do I get this to work? I'll just click. Um, yeah, so I've been in my job now about 5-ish months, and like one day, about 3 months in, I ran out of AI tokens and had like this 2-hour wait period before I had more. And I realized something terrifying, and that was that I didn't really want to code without AI assistance. Like I was probably writing about 20% of my code, and at that time, but then having to write like 100% of it had this kind of like jarring feeling, and I really didn't like having that feeling, especially as like a newbie to software development. Um, a little bit about me. Um, I retrained from a career in furniture manufacturing. Um, I did Dev Academy in the Tohoda 2025 cohort, which was from this past January to May. Um, I had never done much coding before January. I had like, you know, dabbled, but really a very, very tiny amount. Um, and then yeah, I was really lucky to land a job. I got a 1-month contract with Blackwood Systems, and then about 2 weeks in, they offered me a full-time role, which was cool because they picked up more work. And it's really AI forward consultancy. Not only do we use a lot of AI to do our software development, we implement a lot of AI into software like, chatbots and those kinds of things. Um, there's just 5 of us at the company, from very senior down to me at the most junior. And this talk is going to be, just my honest experience over the last 5 months, still figuring it out. Definitely not saying I have any answers to anything. I'll share some of the things that have been working for me, some mistakes I've made along the way, and uh, feel free to interrupt if you have questions along the way. Like we don't have to wait to the end, but we will have the question answers at the end as well. Um,
Hey, just on that point, if you want, I can monitor the chat and the text, and I can just call out the questions if you want.
oh, that would be sick because I am definitely not looking at, I don't have the chat window open.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. What this talk is not is AI good? Is it bad? We can all have our own opinions on that. It's yeah, and again, it's definitely not I've figured it all out. I'm very much a junior, and I don't know what I don't know. But I'm hopefully my story is interesting and maybe even helpful. Right, so I can give you what the early days of my job were like. Things were moving really fast. Like as you see there, I've only been there 5 months. I've already worked on 4 different projects that have gone from zero to in production with real users, which is crazy. Um, I guess one of the really interesting things about the job is that it is a software consultancy. And so that means I get to work on like heaps of projects for different clients. We're not working on just one thing. and we don't have like this huge legacy code base. And we're typically doing those projects from like beginning into maintenance mode. Um, and yeah, so it feels pretty crazy, like how fast we've been using stuff. I feel like if I had started at like a company pre AI, I'd probably be still working on the same single page of a website. So it just feels crazy to have been working on so many projects. Um, yeah. Um, the tension, what I find really interesting is that yeah, AI has definitely like made me a super productive junior, but I kind of fear that as I go, like I'm going to kind of plateau and not reach like full potential because I'll end up relying on AI more and more. Whereas like I want to grow into a senior developer and be able to solve more complex things. I'd say my experience so far is that both of those things are kind of true. It absolutely speeds me up. Um, and I've definitely had like times where I feel like I'm not learning. And we're definitely going to talk about that as well. Um, when I started off, I jumped like straight into a new project with a client. And we started off by like vibe coding, like a prototype of the website in V0. And I, I don't know what everyone's experience is if they've used any tools like that, but it was kind of a holy crap moment. It literally built the entire site in like 30 seconds. It wasn't perfect by any means, but we had put in like this big product requirement document that had like all of the, what the schema should be, what the tech stack should be, and quite a lot of detail, like 6 pages of text. And it basically turned out like a really good first draft of what we wanted to do. Um, and then that left a real strong impression. I was like, all right, cool. I can like do a lot with this, and I went like uh full AI mode and like was writing very little code and was just prompting the crap out of this thing and getting it to just build and build and build without really reviewing the code because I didn't know. I'd never really used AI before this moment. During Dev Academy, I really tried to not use AI. And then even then I was just using like ChatGPT and copy paste or like solving a problem and then writing it myself. And so using something like this was like so opposite of my experience. Um, and yeah, it was also just pretty weird to not be writing code in my software development job, or not much code. Then I brought my code base locally to do the development without the vibe coding to like get it past the prototype stage and actually start building out like something that could be deployed. And that's when I realized that I had just built a big bowl of spaghetti code. It was not pretty, and even as a junior, I could tell that it was really bad code. Lots of files with a lot of lines of code. And so then I basically spent the next 2 weeks sorting out the mess that I created, which is really painful, but it was also a really good learning experience of having to figure out how to refactor the code and learning things about modularity and um, like code architecture, as well as it was a new tech stack for me. I was using Next.js and Supabase. Um, though what's been really cool is that in that first experience, I learned a lot of lessons really fast. It took me, it was like 4 weeks to get the project um, 90% done. Um, and then the next project I worked on, it was even faster. It was like 2 weeks, which is again crazy that you could build an app start to finish that fast. Um, but I learned a lot of lessons from that previous one that I was able to apply and then also like keep learning and figure out the things. as I was going. Um, and then also too in that second one, and third one, I started to realize I was seeing a lot of the same stuff. Like a lot of building web applications is just doing CRUD operations, and um, we use the same tech stack on for most of our clients, so Next.js and Supabase, and I was starting to really be able to dig into different concepts that I didn't know about in those. And so that was really nice. So it was like I could see my growth in that understanding just because I was getting that repetition and I was getting it really fast. Even if I was only writing less than 50% of the code, probably only 20 to 30%. Um, and also what I realized too is like when you do the same things over and over, you start to get like this pattern recognition where like you run into the same problems. And then when you dig into that solution to that problem, it's like the next time you see it, you know what to do. Which I think is kind of also my experience from when I was going through Dev Academy. Um, um, and I think a lot of that is because of AI, like because I'm just seeing so much more code than I would ever see without AI generated stuff. Um, yeah, well, let me check my notes real quick. Uh, yeah, so I think it started to develop like a sense. I could see, I could understand what AI was going to do. Like even if it was wrong, like I'd have a sense of like, oh, it's starting to go off track. I need to stop it and figure out how to bring it back on track. Um, and That's when the AI crisis happened for me. It was that 3 months in that I was talking about. Um, I feel like I might need to like stage it a bit. I don't know what kind of AI tools people have worked with, whether it's just like in your development environment with like Cursor or Windsurf or something like that, or Claude Code in your terminal, or vibe coding tools like Lovable or V0. But just for everybody that is maybe unfamiliar with those things, Lovable is like talking into Chat GBT, but instead of getting a text response, you get like a live view of a website that you can then download actual code from. And Cursor and Windsurf are like, you know, basically VS Code. I think Cursor is literally a fork of VS Code, and then it just is AI baked into it. Um, and Claude Code is similar to those, but it runs in your terminal. And that's what I use is Claude Code. What's really crazy about it too is like because it runs in your terminal, it can just run. So it's like more agentic. You don't have to tab complete. You can give it a task and it'll just go and do everything. And that's because it has access to your whole file system. It can like basically go into every page in your repo to get context, and then it can build all the different files you need for whatever you're building. Also, too, in your terminal, it can run CLI. Any command that you can run in your terminal, it can run that for you, um, which is pretty crazy. Um, right. Then, so that was a bit of a sidetrack, but I wanted to give like that context of like how I was working. Um, uh, yeah, I'm getting a little sidetracked with my own notes here. But anyways, one of the stories I wanted to talk about was seeing where AI was failing. And what I realized is like AI likes to take a lot of shortcuts. It's like you ask it to do something and it's like, I got you. I'm gonna do that thing. And then it just like cheats. Like I was doing a test to like test this authentication flow and it was failing. And instead of fixing the problem, that the reason it was failing, it was just like, oh, cool, we're gonna write a bypass function. Um, so we just skip your whole authentication altogether and we hit your database. I was like, okay, that's literally not what I want you to do. That kind of defeats the purpose of this. And that was like a really good learning lesson is that you can't just trust AI, that it will just like try and get to whatever solution any way possible. Um, and yeah, um, it has no problem making that test pass. Like it'll, one of the ridiculous things that I realized in testing specifically is that if it's failing a test, instead of fixing the code to make the test pass, it will rewrite the test to make your failing code pass, if that makes sense. Like it's like, oh, you've got a broken feature, but it's just rewritten the test to be like, cool, you got it, it's all good. And then you go test your feature and it's still broken. Um, and so that was just like interesting learning experience. Oh yeah, here we go. And that's kind of like when I was about 3 months in, as I was saying, and had this bit of a crisis because I was going on vacation and we downgraded my Cloud Code account to Pro just to not be wasting money while I was on vacation. And you have a much smaller amount of token allotment. And I like burned through that. And I still had like 3+ hours in my day that I needed to get work done. Um, and I could feel myself not wanting to handwrite code. Like I was just like the pain of how slow I was going to be was really dawning on me. Um, and it was like, like I knew that I could, but because I was writing code even with that, but I was doing like really small things, like I see a problem and instead of prompting Claude to fix that really tiny problem, I just open up the file and do it. But the idea of like building an entire feature by myself felt really daunting. And I was almost having like withdrawals from not having this tool available, which was really like a visceral feeling. Um, um, yeah, but I guess there's a big difference in like being knowing what you're supposed to do and then like being able to produce that yourself, like having that practice of doing it manually. Um, yeah, so I took a 2 week vacation, which I think was great. It gave me a lot of time to like think about those feelings and time to you know read blogs and Reddits and hear what other people's experiences were. Um, and I kind of felt like I was doing myself a disservice and optimizing for the short term and like the productivity in my job, which is important, but um, I want to grow as a developer. Um, so I was trying to reevaluate how I could make sure I was optimizing for learning and not just productivity. And so when I got back, I got really intentional and not go back up to the max plan. And the reason for that is like I would run out after 4 or 5 hours, and so I would like be forced to manually write code for like 3 hours a day, which yeah, I knew that that would be a really good kind of barrier for myself to force me to get the repetition in and the practice and um, debugging and things like that. And that was another thing is like always setting like a 15-minute debugging rule, kind of very similar to Dev Academy, where I was like, I'm gonna try and figure this out myself. And then yeah, so when I got back, I started doing that, and it was really cool because it was like having that realization that I hadn't, gone smooth brain. I could still do the things. And had a lot of debugging on that first day, and it was really fun actually to get in and solve the problems. And so that really helped with me to be able to keep it up because it was fun. Um, oh, what was that? Get off track on my slides there. Um, yeah, I think again the main reason for that was like to maximize my growth and like get to a place where I can solve bigger problems and work on more interesting projects, and not just output. How I've been doing that. So a few of the things that have been really working for me. Um, this is mostly like using AI, but also how to make sure I'm like learning along the way. A really big part of coding with AI is building enough context. Because like I was saying, like it just makes a lot of mistakes. Like I'm sure as any of you have used AI, it has a lot of bad ideas. Um, but it's really as good as the context that you give it. And so when starting out on like a new feature, um, it's really great to like write a really long um, like explanation of that feature and like how you want the code to be structured and um, those types of things. If there's like a new database schema, put that in there as well. Um, yeah, and like the tech stack you're going to use and stuff as well. What I found to be really useful tool as well is like after you've given that context and then the AI goes, cool, I'm ready to implement it. I've got it, is to ask it what questions it has. And like very important with your language, as many of you probably know. If you say something like, do you have questions? It'll just be like, nah, we're good. Let's do this thing. But if you say, what are your questions? It kind of forces it into asking you questions because it uh, is a sycophant and wants to please you. Um, and what I found is that like it will have really good questions, and you realize all of the context that you didn't give it or that it didn't understand. And so then you can give more context, and then you just like rinse and repeat. And you do that, you keep asking it what questions it has until you get to the point where it's just asking really kind of nothing questions. Um, that makes it really obvious that it has all the context. And then you can get it to execute what you want. And you will get a much better result from that. Um, yeah, I think I just said that. Yeah, we already said that. But yeah, you get to that point where it's got your plan, and then you can actually get it to break down that plan into like phases and have it do chunks instead of like this really big piece. And that's, yeah, what I found is like just like AI, we have a context window, and mine is really small. If I'm looking at like more than a few hundred lines of code, my brain starts to glaze over, especially if I didn't like hand write that code. Um, I'm gonna have to spend some time to really understand what it's doing before I'm like confident to move on to the next piece. And that's been really intentional, is like instead of writing just loads of code with AI, is going a lot slower and getting it to write way less, so I can understand what it's doing and then kind of disagree with it or challenge it on what it's doing to see if that's the best solution. Like ask it why it chose to do it that way and like what the alternatives were and what how that could work. Um, Another thing is like doing really small PRs. So like instead of doing like huge features, breaking those features down into like smaller pieces. Um, and I think yeah, kind of the same thing is if I have like 600 to 800 lines of code, I can still manage that. Whereas if you just let AI go, like it'll write thousands and thousands of lines, and then you just will not review that. And then also you're putting like a huge burden on your team when they have to review your PRs. Um, and yeah, so that is my main reason, keeping that small and again intentional that I can like review that code and make sure I understand what I'm trying to push into the code base. Yeah, so another thing that I started doing after that kind of feeling like I was maybe not optimizing for my learning was when I would put a PR up, I would go in and instead of like, typically the comments are for someone reviewing your code. But instead I would like go in and explain my code to the person that was going to review it. So I'd like make comments like saying why I chose to do certain things. And basically what this enforced was like I had to know what my code was doing on a like really good high level to be able to explain it. And if I couldn't, I had to like go back and teach myself about that stuff until I could explain it or even determine sometimes that it's maybe built it in a kind of silly way and that I needed to go refactor what I did. Um, and also too, it like the feedback I've got from my peers reviewing my code is they're like, man, this really makes my job easy because I can get the context really fast. Um, and that's just where I'm like, yep, we're just all large language models too. We have a context window and our training data is just the lives that we've been living. But yeah, the making it small and easy for people to understand has been really valuable for me and for the people reviewing my code. Um, I'm just like skipping ahead on my slides. I made way too many slides because I already said all of this stuff. Another thing with using like agentic coding, like Claude Code, is that there is like a code-based quality loop. If you start with bad practice, it will just like continue doing that bad practice because it is looking at your code base to get an understanding of what it's supposed to do um, to get that context. And it's like, oh, cool, you're writing 2,000 line files with like all of the business logic in your client side. Sweet, we're going to keep doing that. But if you like build that system out from the very beginning, when it looks at your code, it will have that reinforcement of like, okay, this is how I need to break the code apart. Um, that being said, it's still like we'll get off track sometimes, and you have to like bring it back. Yeah, you got to watch for the drift. And that's like really cool thing of like using Claude Code. Like it's you can see what it's doing, like it's in the terminal, and you can view the it'll show you the code that it's writing um, step by step. So like as it's thinking, um, and you can see like oh it's doing that wrong, and you can update you can add another prompt in and it'll adjust like on the fly and correct the mistakes it was making. So like that's another thing is like watching it what it's doing because you could definitely just like set it and go do your laundry um, and then when you get back you have a whole bunch of code that you have to parse instead of if you're just like doing it as it goes you're able to like understand it faster. Um, And yeah, the other thing of like doing it like this is you start to get like a code nose. Like you can you can smell out the bad stuff when it's like especially because it's you're seeing so much more code from when you're writing with AI, is that you start to recognize the like very common patterns where it just starts to go off track. Like very often like I can get that sign of like it's going off track. But oh, did I go backwards? Oops. Um, no, let's go. You can like tell it's going off track because I'll have my types in a like a types um, directory and import those into files. But then you like start seeing it writing those types into your components, and it's just like a real obvious sign that it's not following the pattern that you set up. Oh, I did it again. Oh, I just keep going back. What am I doing? Um, Another interesting thing that I've like, I've never worked as a developer without AI, so I don't know. I'll never know what that experience is like. Or maybe if I go to a future job where I don't use AI. Um, but I feel like the trade-off is like I maybe am have a weaker ability to write like the actual syntax of code. and would need more help there, but I'm getting like a really good, strong understanding of like architecting code, just by like what I need to study to make sure that AI is not doing it wrong. And so I feel like I'm really growing faster there, than maybe like more complex, um, like building out functions and that more synthetic type stuff. Um, what I'm still figuring out, yeah, breadth versus depth. I feel like with AI, like I'm just getting exposed to a bunch of different concepts. So it's like when I give it a prompt and it it solves that problem for me, and it'll like bring up something that I've never heard of before. Um, versus like maybe a more traditional path with no AI. You're you're working on a very like narrow slice of the code base, with your team. Um, and you may get really deep in that like one piece of the code base, and be really strong in that spot, but maybe not get quite the exposure to as many other things, because you're not seeing as much code. Maybe I don't really know, but um, I feel like that's been really cool is getting that exposure and just not being like, oh, I've never heard of use Memo before, um, or use Memo, however you say it. Um, I'm gonna go study that and like learn about that, and then I learn, and then in the next project, when I need to do something that would use that, I know to just like prompt it to use that, or um, if it's asking me to use that, I can then challenge it and ask it why it wants to use that and figure out if that's actually the thing that should be happening. What I'm not learning, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm not learning. I do have like good senior coworkers who are guiding me and like helping me grow and like telling me like what areas of things where I could improve. Um, the can I code with AI if without AI if needed? I don't know, because I still code a lot with AI. I am doing more, like I still maintain that split of doing like 5 hours with it and to, be a productive employee, but then 3 hours without it to like make sure that I'm not gonna lose that skill. Because it is like, again, I just started in January, so it's a really young skill. I am conscious on time. I think I've been going for like 45 minutes or 40 minutes. My take, definitely pro AI, but I don't trust it. Like it's super useful. Um, no, no, I didn't get the job at the start of boot camp. Um, I started in January in boot camp and finished in May, which you were in my boot camp. Uh, but I started the job, I think, at the end of May, um, something like that. How many months is that? May, June, July, August, September. Yeah, so it's about 5 months. Um, I have found that I need to be really intentional with my like practice and learning, because if I'm not, like, I can see how easy it is to fall into the like convenience of just, you know, pressing go. Um, yeah, and also too, just not op optimizing for my learning. Like, I still have to be productive in my job, and there's because we're an AI forward company, there's like an expectation there. Um, but not like recognizing that I am a junior and that I'm not going to be as productive as my coworkers, and that learning is important because then in the future I will be as productive as them because I have um, grown that skill. And that's it. Just open it up for questions. Um, hear
Oh,
your
me,
own
I've
stories
got a
with AI.
question.
Yeah.
I've got a couple actually. The first one, I'll just do one and then I'll let other folks jump in. I was really curious about your that like spaghetti crisis where you were like,
Hmm.
oh crap, I really have to approach this from an architectural standpoint, best practice, like do clean code, do modularity, look at it like that. And I'm lo would love to know if you have any particular resources about that that you can recommend to people, because I know that
Mm.
that's something that Dev Academy doesn't really teach, and I think that that's seems really important when you're actually getting out there and like having to deal with all this generated code, right? Like you kind of got to know what you're hacking apart in what way.
Yeah, totally. That's probably something that I should have added into the presentation because that's another thing that I do is like every week, whatever I've been focusing on that week, like um, I've done like four super base setups, and in the beginning, I didn't really know like it was a large learning curve to like figure out all the stuff with super base because it's like it's your database, it's auth, it's storage for files and WebSocket, but I haven't done anything with that yet. Um, and so it was just like a lot that I was having to learn. And so what I did is I actually would get Claude Code to go look at everything that I had done, read all of my PRs, and then get it to teach me using the code that I wrote, um, like how I could refactor it. Um, and then also like finding resources and then summarizing those resources. And then I'd get it to write me exercise problems. I would do the exercise
Hmm.
problems, and then ask it how I did, and it would give me feedback. And so it was like, it's just AI all the way down. Um, so I wouldn't, I unfortunately don't have any like specific resources. I could actually find some because I have like
Hmm.
I keep all the links from like where it does web scrapes and
Nice.
like
Yeah, yeah,
this.
cool.
So I could share that in the chats. Um,
Yeah, up to you. That would be awesome. Yeah, because I always
yeah,
love to know
especially
like
for
where it's get sourcing all of its stuff from, like it's quite
yeah,
good to know.
totally.
Yeah.
Um, when I was doing like trying to improve how I do Git workflows, a lot of that was from Atlassian. Um, but the clean code, the stuff, that's one of the things I've been like taking a more focus on in the last few weeks. And um, so I definitely have some resources on that.
Hmm.
Just
Awesome.
had to find the links. Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely.
Just a question about your role in particular. So when you devised your 4 to 5 hours of AI and then the rest as normal human being coding, did you at your role in particular, did you have to like pitch that to anyone, or is your role super autonomous and you just kind of, so long as you output a certain amount of stuff, you get to structure that however you want?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm super lucky that we have a like really non-micromanage culture. So it's like I didn't have to ask. It's more like, these are the things we need to complete this week, as long as you complete all of that. And it's actually like expected. Like when I was onboarding, they were like, we want you to log a certain number of hours each week on learning and development, which is really cool. Um, I think in the beginning, I just was like so anxious about producing that I wasn't doing that. Like I was just like going hard on the AI coding. And then like I started to rein that back, especially with like my team member that's mentoring me, like was really helping me make that decision as well. So there was like feedback from the team, or I had those signals from the team, but there was like no one that I had to pitch it to.
Cool. Hey, just FYI, there's a question from Lana in the chat. It's a bit long
Yeah.
for me to read out, so I'll just leave that to you.
Yeah. Yeah, how would I feel I would apply to a non-A4 job? I think I meant to say that in the presentation. That like kind of scares me a little bit. Like, how would I compare to someone with a similar experience to me that didn't work in an AI like environment? Because like their ability to write code is going to be a lot higher, I think, than mine. without the assistance. And so like if I went into a company, like it almost scares me the idea of like having to interview for another job at some point in the future. And if that company, I'll probably end up skewing towards companies that have the same ethos, just because that'll have been my experience. Um, I missed the second part of your question. Um, Interesting. Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe so. I think that depends on the employer too. Like if they want someone who is like if they're really more not into AI coding, and it's just super valid as well. Like a lot of the stuff I've been reading is that like more senior developers actually find it slows them down. Whereas like for me, I know it speeds me up because like it's teaching me things that I didn't know, or it's giving me like places to go search and learn about things. Because it's just like introducing me to things. Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I studied design in school. Um, and so I think that actually does help me as well as like, that's like another thing. Like when I initially signed up for Dev Academy, it was not actually like I had an interest in software development for sure from like previous experiences with coworkers who were software developers. But I kind of saw myself like when I initially thought about doing the course, it was more learning about the software development lifecycle so that I could become like a product manager or something like that. But then after like doing Dev Academy, I was like, nah, I really enjoy this because I like building stuff. Um, and so that's why I like went down this path instead. Um, but yeah, that's coming from a design background. I thought maybe that's what I would do, or something more on that line.
Sorry, I had another question. Um, I was actually really curious, so because this like phrase of an AI forward company interests me, and I'm like, and the fact that you've got so many clients like coming and going, and you're working on so many different projects, I find that really interesting. And I guess I'm wondering like whether you have any specific kinds of clients that you've noticed are coming towards this consultancy, or yeah, like what kind of work are you actually getting?
Yeah, I mean, so we're doing all kinds of stuff, like a range of different clients. Most of them are in the States. But I think like the reason we're able to get so many clients and they're not all like big projects. We have some like really huge projects that like one of my coworkers, she only works on one project full time. Um, Whereas the rest of us work on different stuff. Um, but yeah, I think it's a lot of my boss's network. Um, like he knows a lot of people as well as he's like really, I don't know, active on LinkedIn. I don't know if that's where our business comes from. But I think like the value proposition that our company offers is that um, we can leverage cost because we can build something for way less money than it used to be, but actually more money um, in a sense as well. Like, because it's like we can still charge really well for our time, but we're just spinning the apps out so much faster that that end cost for the client is lower. Um, and so I think that's like the value proposition that our company has. Yeah, I feel you on that. Because that's actually one of like because my boss is also one of the founders of Dev Academy. We like Dev Academy is one of our clients. And we're like building out those. some of that coursework. And it is like being someone who just went through the course, I really valued that like hard learning. And I think like it would, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be able to actually utilize AI very well. And so that is like a big discussion that we're having is like how much AI, like, because we don't want to, like, I guess the thing is that as this industry is changing, like, not disadvantaging people by not teaching them those tools, but
Mm.
also like not making them dependent on those tools, which is a big chat. Um, all right, oh, hi, Joel. Um, yeah, we do like agile for sure, but not like super structured. Like I think it's like a real lean like framework of AI or not AI, agile. Like we do stand-ups and we talk to each other about like where we're stuck and like people can jump on different things. Um, but it is like a bit weird. Like we do like kind of like an agile flow of like, work in progress, keeping that small. Um, um, and like getting like pushing things to main quite rapidly, like not um, spending a lot of time building out a feature, like we're making sure that we're constantly integrating into the production code. Um, but because like we're doing AI development, a lot of us are like kind of work on our own. Like my very first project, I was working completely solo. I've done 4 projects now. 2 of those were solo, and 2 of those have been 3-person teams. Um, and so it's it I have found that I really enjoy the work though, that when it's 3 people teams, because it's just like it's more fun. We're 100% remote as well, so it's like um I don't get I'm slightly extroverted, and so having that social part of the job is also nice. And one of the disadvantages of remote, but having a young family, it's pretty sick having a remote job as well. I wouldn't say, to answer the last bit of your question, I don't think we do anything like special when it comes to like our workflow. It is, loosely agile.
Nice. Any more questions from folks? I want to give people time to type in the chat if they do have that.
Yeah, so we do test-driven development. So basically just writing all of our tests before we build our features. Um, and again, like having AI, that's really great because um, personally, testing is like one of my weakest skills. Um, but I can get, as a part of that, I can get in my plan building for like how I get AI to do it. I can get it to write all the tests first. But again, it's like AI really loves to cheat on tests. Like it's super, it cheats in a lot of places, but like especially on tests, it loves to like shortcut and just go like, oh, let's just make this test pass. We're not going to fix the code. We're just going to make it pass. So you have to like pay attention to that stuff as well. Um, I don't think I said TDD, but I did talk a little bit about like how AI um, really likes to cheat on tests.